I will be presenting a case brief on Mahanoy Area School District versus BL 594 US 2021. This case really touches on student free speech outside of the school and kind of where those lines are as it relates to a student's rights and a school's authority. So, as we start, I'm going to briefly go over the facts of the case. Um, at the end of her first year at Mahanoy Area School in Pennsylvania, the student, Brandy Levy, tried out for the varsity cheerleading team. As a part of the tryouts, the student agreed to a set of standards for being a part of the cheerleading team that required to respect the school, coaches, and other cheerleaders and other teams. The rules prohibited the use of foul language and inappropriate gestures if they were offered a position on the squad, and when representing the school, and banned placing any negative information regarding cheerleaders, or coaches on the internet. So, as fate would have it, Levy did not receive a spot on the team, on the varsity team, and as a result, like most young adolescents do, she did not receive it with good grades. So she posted in her frustration on Snapchat. Um, Over the weekend, her and her friend were at a local convenience store in the community, and she uploaded two photos with a selfie showing her sticking up her middle finger, and under it, using explicit language, F school, F cheer, F everything. As a result of that, and as with Snapchat, it is up for 24 hours. One of the cheerleaders did notice it, who was friends, the daughter of one of the coaches, and she reported it to the coach because Levy actually did not get varsity, but she was on the JV team. When the coaches were notified because of the agreement that Levy had agreed to, she was then suspended, and then not because of her violation of the contract that an agreement she agreed to in that. So the post, of course, just to kind of briefly go over, it was made off campus over the weekend on her phone. It was shared with other students because in Snapchat they could see it for 24 hours, and as a result, the school suspended her. So this case is unique in that it really starts to bring up some of the concerns that we see when how original intent is meant in terms of a school's jurisdiction to the First Amendment. So some questions that were presented in this case is that, does the First Amendment limit public school authority to regulate off student speech? And then, can schools punish a student for speech made outside of school and outside of school hours? So these were some of the questions among many others that this case kind of brought up. And in June 23rd of 21, the Supreme Court ruled 8-1 in favor of Levy, affirming that her First Amendment rights were violated. Some of the rationale between that, I kind of divided into three areas: of off campus speech, of substantial disruption, and context of her speech. So, when reviewing this case and researching, the off campus speech, especially on social media, has greater protection under the First Amendment. And the school's interest in regulating her speech did not outweigh her right to free expression. Um, Secondly, the substantial disruption. They did pull in the logic from Tinker versus Des Moines case, and schools can only regulate speech that would substantially disrupt school operations. And in this case, through Snapchat, Levy's expression did not cause such a disruption. And then lastly, the context of her speech. Levy's speech was expressed in a private capacity outside of school grounds and outside of school time. One of the arguments in my research was in local parentis, where historically that was used in education kind of to protect students. And one of the justices did try to bring that into, but it was determined that it did not apply for the school due to its capacity in the setting and the circumstance. So, based on those things, they ruled in favor of her First Amendment right. Some of the separate opinions um, that we heard, the majority opinion was that schools have a special interest in regulating certain off campus student speech, but in this interest, it must be balanced against students' free speech rights. So, where the school does kind of have some jurisdiction and what's appropriate, making sure that they balance that. And then one of the opposing speeches was from Justice Thomas, who argued that historically schools have had a broader authority to discipline students, and suggested that the majority opinion kind of failed to consider the unique challenges posed by social media. So this decision for Mahanoy Area School District versus Levy, it just affirmed the protection of students' First Amendment rights with regards to off-campus speech. It also reinforced the idea that students don't shed those rights of freedom to speech outside of school's jurisdiction. And this case set precedent that limits the extent to that schools can control students' behavior outside of school activities and locations, as well as discipline students for their off-campus behavior outside of those things. So I feel like it highlighted the need for within education for us to create a balance between disciplinary policies and procedures with respect for students' constitutional rights. How we would apply this in education, it really demonstrates just our widespread role within the realm of social media in students' lives, and emphasizes the needs for how schools should establish guidelines and policies for how we should approach student conduct, in particular with social media posts made off campus. Um, Things like policy development, school development, student development and education and parent education would be some ways to really apply this with policy development, making sure that schools continue to review and update their policies regarding student conduct and how social media can be incorporated in this with its usage in this modern digital age that still honors the students' rights while protecting others from negative effects of how we've seen social media kind of be used negatively towards other students, and just trying to find that balance. Um, Within student development, just schools have started implementing like digital citizenship trainings for students that really cover like how to appropriately respond and be responsible to social media usage and off-campus behaviors in particular. And then the same with parent education, just creating partnerships of resources to assist parents and promote kind of ownership and kind of that jurisdiction and authority of their students when they're not on campus, and teaching them what's appropriate. Just lastly, a summary of the case. It was a landmark case because it really did, again, stress the importance of student speech while acknowledging the limited authority of schools, especially when it's off-campus activity. In this case, neither case law or history, as I did my research, really resolved the question of whether schools have the authority to regulate that. And as a result, it highlights the need for us to continually dialogue and adjust policy to navigate just how complex things with the nuances of communication have changed with the digital age and how students communicate.